Hello, my friends. It's Ruth Anderson here. I understand you've been having quite a time with Zoom and with the recording, so I really apologize for that. And I know that we are going to be having Nancy and Deb join us here in just a minute. So thank you for hanging in there with us. Let me see if somebody's going to join us here. I want to just take a minute while I'm waiting for these folks to show up. And I just want to tell you how I know NancyTarr. So about 2 years ago, I had posted with, I don't even remember, Patty Malick, and she was with Soul Lifetimes magazine, I think it was, and I had posted that I did sessions with folks, and I received a phone call from NancyTarr. And it was fascinating to me because I'm talking to her on the phone. I've never met her before in my life. And I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed to know who she was. And so I said to her, it was not a typical conversation that you would have with the client. I said to her, I don't know what this means, but I'm supposed to work with you someday. And we have stayed in touch over the years. And we've got our friends on here now, 2 of them at least. And I adore Nancy. She is somebody that I look up to. She is someone that I treasure. And I'm so glad that you all are getting to talk to her here. So I'm going to make our friends panelists. We've got everybody except for Nancy, and I know she'll be on in just a minute. Yay, there's Terry.
Hi.
And Deb. We've almost got Deb.
Almost. I guess I need my video.
At least we can. Good. Okay. So we're just waiting for Nancy, and I know she'll be on. So anyway, there are times in your life, at least for me, when I'll meet someone, even if it's just over the phone, but I'll get really this whispering from spirit of pay attention to this one. This one's a keeper. And for me, NancyTarr was my keeper. And I have found it fascinating to go back through a couple of different past lives. And I have found NancyTarr and Linda Dirks to be in those past lives. So it's fascinating how our soul people will sometimes just stick with us time after time. And here is Nancy. So yay, she's a panelist. So let's make sure we've got her. Let's make sure she can hear us and we can hear her. Nancy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can't, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you, Ruth.
Okay, and I'm the only one talking at the moment, so we're gonna go with just me for the moment. I'm gonna let you work on the video piece of that, but I wanna play Nancy's video. I know that the sound was glitchy. When I got on, it was start and stop and very glitchy, but this is a pretty profound video. And it's really important that y'all hear it. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to start it over from the beginning. We're going to assume it's not the video, that there was a problem with the Zoom. So I'm going to try that. So hang in there with us, please. Hi, I'm Dr. Ruth Anderson with Enlightened World Network, and I am so pleased to have you with us for this episode of Enlightened Women. Grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and join us. Enlightened Women is a show about women who embrace spiritual transformation in order to embody their soul's calling. In these episodes, we not only talk about what these amazing women are doing with their lives, but what they're currently learning as a spiritual being having a physical experience. Some of our speakers have had a lifelong connection with spirit, where for others, it's a newer relationship. Our guest today has a special connection with the Divine Mother. Dr. NancyTarr is an intuitive, scholar, and best-selling author. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you. Nancy, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nancy, I'm not going to read your bio, but can you just give us some bullet points? What do you want us to know about what has brought you to this place in life?
Well, it's been a very interesting journey. And as I tell my students, when we talk about things like predestination versus free will choice and all of that, I say, I draw 2 points and I say, so how do we get from here to here? Do we in a straight line, or do we do this all over? And I just zigzag all over the board. And that is sort of what brought me here. It's been zigzaggy, but the entire time there's been something underlying that it was intentional. Everything that I have experienced, done in my work career, in my life, has brought me to this point, has made me who I am, and is serving me now, either with my teaching or with my writing or with my continued spiritual journey. I had a very long career in business. Most of it was either in medicine or in education or in theater. And I also had a theater career for a long time as well, on stage and off. And I was the only one of 5 children who did not go to college. And in 1999, I woke up one morning. I'd always been very proud of myself for advancing in my career and all of that. It was like this badge of honor and pride that, look, I don't have a college degree and look at where I am. And I woke up and heard this voice say inside my head, I think I want to go to college. And I was like, ooh, I don't know who said that, but it was not me. So the really kind of short version of this is that in May of 1999, I ended up signing up for a weekend program for adult students at what was then the College of Notre Dame of Maryland. And I said, I want to major in philosophy. And I graduated in 2005 while working full time. I did this, part-time. I graduated with a double major in religious studies and philosophy. I had not asked for the double major. They set that up for me. So it was like I had this little hand, not so little hand, in the middle of my back, sort of pressing me forward. And the whole time I knew that I didn't need to worry about things. I didn't question. I didn't say, why am I doing this? I just knew that it would come to light. Something would happen that would just open up the windows and say, hey, here's why you're doing this. I still didn't know. I would have teachers say to me, we want your work to really show what you can do because you're going to be going into graduate work. Well, nobody told me that, but they were. So all of this was planned by spirit, by the divinity, and by Divine Mother, of course. And so I then I got accepted into a PhD program out of the University of Wales. And the procedure for that was that what you did was you sent a proposal. And I had sent a proposal about talking about the divine feminine. And I got an email back saying, if you put something in about the Virgin Mary, we will work with you. I'm a nice Protestant kid. I knew very little about the Virgin Mary. So I said, yes, I will do that. So I earned my PhD and received the degree in 2013. And my doctoral thesis was about feminine wisdom and Mary, the mother of Jesus. A few years ago, after I retired from a job, I was asked if I wanted to teach a course at what had been the College of Notre Dame of Maryland in the philosophy department. And I said, sure. And I am still there as an assistant professor of philosophy, and I do teach some religious studies courses. And the doctoral thesis has just been this year released as 2 books. The second one actually just called Beyond the Veil, Unraveling the Mystery of Mary, just launched last week and is doing really well. So it's a 2-volume series. And so everything has brought me to right here, right now. And when I did hear that voice say to me at one point, don't worry about it, just do it. Now I understand why.
And was that voice, do you think, Divine Mother? Or do you think it was the Holy Spirit or another guide? What do you think?
I think it was, well, I will say this. I don't particularly put gender to like the divine source. It's just not, I mean, yes, I grew up where, I said the Lord's Prayer, and we talked about God the Father and God the Son and God the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost. But I've never really thought that much about it, because I guess just because I haven't. But the voice was distinctly masculine. It is a voice that I heard 3 times when I said, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? And I heard the same, and I had heard PhD, and then I heard again PhD, and then I heard when I was like, okay, look, why am I doing this PhD? And I screamed, what am I going to do? There was an explicative in there that I will not share. What am I going to do with a PhD? And this voice, it was very loud, it was very deep. And my cat that I had at the time literally jumped straight up off of my lap. And it said, don't worry about it, just do it. So I don't think I know it was not a guide. I'm going to assume that I really do believe it was the divine source talking with me. Maybe through spirit, maybe even through a voice that they thought I might recognize, which I did not. But then both of my grandfathers passed away. I can say, well, was it a grandparent? Both of my grandparents passed away when I was a baby. So I wouldn't know what their voices sound like, but it was a very commanding voice. I'm telling you, it made me sit up and take notice. And it made me feel comfortable enough to know that everything was okay and that I didn't need to question. I just needed to know that what I would have faith in, the fact that what I was doing was what I needed to do was, and I will say, I do think that if it was the divine source, I do think that it was coming through spirit, but it was sounding very masculine, and I don't look at spirit as being masculine. Now, I just finished saying I don't equate gender, but if I think of spirit as anything, it's probably a little more on the feminine side. Not necessarily feminine gendered, but more on the feminine side.
I know you have channeled from Divine Mother for me.
Yes.
So when you do that, does it sound feminine? Does it, or do you just know in your heart of hearts that it's Divine Mother?
I just know. The voice that I hear quite often, it's hard to explain because it's like I hear something, I hear it in my head. And I know that I have to write it down. So, and I did this with my doctoral thesis, to be quite honest. I would hear something starting and I would run over to the computer, or I'd grab a piece of paper, and at the computer, my fingers would literally just fly. And I would have bits and pieces. And it wasn't until 3 years into it, that I was actually almost 4 years into it, that I thought, wait a minute, I've already got most of this written. And I pulled out everything that I had stored. I think it presents itself in my head, but it's a knowing that it is. Sometimes it says, this is Divine Mother. Sometimes it does not, and that's when I know. I guess that makes sense. I'm not sure.
It does. Absolutely. And I think everybody experiences spirit in their own way.
I feel it in my heart. That's my confirmation place for knowing that it's right.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And sometimes I will get just like total body goosebumps, which just
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, what I'm hearing. So Nancy, your life has not been sort of a typical life. I mean, your connection to spirit has really guided you because you've been a good listener and you have done the things that you've heard. Has it always been easy for you living this life that spirit suggests?
That's probably been the easiest part if I have listened, is when I have listened. There have certainly been times that I did not listen. I'll be the first one to admit that, consequently making it harder on myself than it needed to be. But those lessons have ended up being important lessons. You know, getting involved in a relationship, let's say, that was not the best relationship to be in, and never physically harmful, but sometimes, you know, I was in one relationship that the guy started gaslighting me, and I didn't realize that that was going on. So there was some psychological stuff going on that I kind of knew, but then I got really vulnerable to it. And if I had listened to that, whoa, you need to not be in this, I would have known to, you know, if I'd listened, I probably would have been better off, except that, once again, that experience has helped me to help others because I can empathize with them and I can say, yeah, I do understand what you mean because I've been there. It was not easy as a kid, and I did tend to put some of my gifts up on a shelf because I was, as a younger child, like 6, 7, 8 through probably about 15, I was told that I had the most fantastic imagination and often accused of lying about things that I was seeing or hearing, and punished for it. I mean, not like beaten or anything, but you go sit in your room and you think about it, and you come back out when you can tell us what really happened. Okay, I did just tell you what really happened, but okay. And I got that more from, rest her soul, my mom than I did from my dad. And I think that my mom was scared because my great grandmother had been institutionalized at one point because they thought that she was drinking too much because she was talking about things she was seeing and things she was hearing.
Oh, wow.
And so my mother, I think, got frightened by that. Although when my dad passed, she then later would say things to me like, well, do you think that he's here? So there was an acknowledgement, and those gifts came in really handy when my mother then had a psychotic break and started saying things that I was like, oh, she's talking about what Helen Blavatsky, the Theosophist, talked about the, you know, the all of these different levels of the heavens and all of this, and God taking her through them. And my siblings were like, okay, you know, it means doctors were going to dope her up on lithium because they said there's no way she could be saying that. Well, yeah. And so I was able to, because of things I had experienced or read about or talked with others about, I was able to negotiate that with her. So it served me. It has been an unusual life when and I have listened. I'm going to say I have listened probably most of it. Sometimes I listened, but I just didn't do it either.
Guilty. Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah. So, really? Okay. I'm going to go off and do this anyway. And then you sort of come back with your tail between your legs, like, oh, maybe I should have. It's like a parent, you know, listening to your parent or not listening. And I'm not going to listen. How could they know what's right for me, right? So, yeah, I'm glad to hear you're guilty of that, too. It makes me feel not quite so silly sometimes. But no, it's been an interesting life. And if I have a regret, which I don't think that I really do have, but if I have a regret, I would have to say that I'm sorry that I waited so long to openly, freely acknowledge and be honest about my gifts and my spirituality, and all of that. You know, if people want to say, she's a little, you know, Dr. Tarr, it's a little off up there, that's fine. But I also have students that line up outside my office door, not to talk about their grades, not to ask questions about their courses, but to talk about spirituality. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. And what a beautiful gift that you are giving to your students.
Oh, thank you. I'm hoping to make the path a little smoother for them in many ways.
So that's interesting that you say that. This morning, I was in meditation asking what I should talk with you about. And one of the things that was brought up was the difference between religion and spirituality, and to ask you, how important is it to you to actually attend like a brick and mortar church versus connecting in with spirit naturally?
It's really not at all important for me to attend a brick and mortar church service. As a matter of fact, I was at a retreat, it was a conference/retreat this past week out in Minnesota. And it was at St. John's University, which is run by the Benedictine monks. And so there's a chapel, a very beautiful little chapel, and it's this huge, huge new church that they built. It's not a church, it's a cathedral. And for the services, and it doesn't matter that I'm not Catholic, because I've been part of just about every religious sect that there could be, you know, over my life. Not necessarily, that sounds weird, but I was baptized Presbyterian, I was confirmed Methodist, we went to a Methodist church, I sang in a Jewish synagogue, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I felt, I mean, it was fine, but I didn't feel that much of a connection until I went into the smaller chapel by myself when no one else was there. And I could feel the sacredness of the spot. I could feel the energies that were there, past, present, and future energies of the love and the devotion and the spirituality that were coursing through it. And that's the part to me, like I will quite often go down to the chapel at school, which I consider to be a very sacred space. And I've been to services there and I don't really, you know, maybe sometimes the music will touch me really deeply, but I don't really like feel that much. And frankly, I did not growing up, but boy, take me outside and put me into a forest someplace, and I was overwhelmed with the sense of just being like, you know, enveloped and part of this something larger than I am. Walk into Notre Dame well, not right at the moment, but walking into Notre Dame in Paris when I was there, the same thing. But I also get that when I sit among the ruins of the Lady Chapel of the old cathedral in Glastonbury. So it's not necessarily the church itself. And I think it's even probably much more not the services aside from the music. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, music really touches me. I mean, music can send me to tears in just a nanosecond. So I understand that. Yeah. But as you're talking, I can really feel the sacredness of the connection for you. That it's not necessarily the man-made doctrine or dogma, but it's the sacredness of the connection and wherever each person can find that.
Absolutely. I think that's what we're here for. It's part of flourishing. It's part of our evolution. It's part of our spiritual belief or understanding. Those that I would say are more atheist than anything else quite often still understand that they are part of something larger. Now, they would define that as community. But what's the first thing that we talk about in spirituality or even in religion? It's about community and our relationships with others. So people who are atheists can be just as spiritual, whether they know it or not, as those of us, as you know, a nun or a monk. I watched the monks out at St. John's, incredibly spiritually, connected people. But they, and these monks are still getting up 8 times a night to pray. So they're praying, I shouldn't say a night, but they pray 8 times a day. It's part of their routine. And I thought, wow, I must have done that in a past life, because there's no way that you could find me doing that right now. But that means the world, that is the world, that is their spiritual life. That is their connection. And that's how they express it. And I'm all for, as long as it doesn't entail harming somebody, I'm all for different ways that people can express it and experience it.
Yes, that's well said. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one of the things that I have thought a lot about is the connection between, really the awareness of connection between body, mind, and spirit in accepting and embracing one's life's calling. Can we talk about that connection between body, mind, and spirit? You and I were sharing a little bit about one of the physical challenges that you've had, which is weight over the years. So what has that really been a challenge for you? And how has that how have you used or incorporated your spirituality into issues with weight?
As I tried to explain to one of the doctors that I had to see a couple of years ago, he said, "So how long has your weight been an issue?" I said, "My whole life." He said, "No, how long has your weight been an issue?" I said, "My whole life." And so he asked me a few other questions. And then he said, "So when did your weight become a problem?" I said, "Okay." I said, "Probably when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I've had a problem with my weight." I said, what are you not hearing here?" He said, he said, very few people sit in that chair and say they've had a problem their whole life." And I said, "Can I tell you that in the 7th grade, I weighed 150 pounds? Now, I never thought of myself as being that different than anybody else. I played the same. I was just as active, and I was very confident. Although I knew some of the other bullies would make fun on occasion. And I was like, but as I got older in theater, it never really stood in my way, because if there was a part that I knew that I could do, there were several directors who took chances on me, and I made the parts my own regardless of my weight. I think that in times, and as you and I talked about, there were times though that as I started to get older, in looking back at it, that if there was something really traumatic or difficult going on in my life, that I started to gain weight. I would gain weight as a sort of protection. And I think that at that point, what I also was doing was not being fully spiritually present in the sacredness of my whole body. That what I was doing was more going up and having my spiritual self be more up here, almost like I was trying to keep it safe, along with trying to keep me safe by putting on extra padding. And particularly, I think it was a lot of it was through my midsection, which apparently is something to do with a lot of women get that, but a lot of it too was, I think, having to do with my feminine side, with reproductive issues. And so protection and just all of that. But then I don't think that at its core, it ever really affected me in a bad way spiritually. I think at times it probably made it stronger. And the spiritual community is actually filled with many people who are all different shapes and sizes and very accepting of different shapes and sizes. So when you get exposed to that, you start to say, oh, I'm not so different. Or, yeah, this is okay. If you have doubts, hey, this is okay. But I went through a really bad time from like 2005 to 2015. And it was in a very bad relationship. And I got larger and larger and larger to the point where there was nothing that I could do at that point to reverse the weight gain other than to have surgery for it. And so that has served me well, but it's being reversed on Monday of next week, as a matter of fact. And I'm looking forward to feeling, quote, normal, unquote, again, and knowing that something has shifted. And I think that that's something that has shifted has been that I don't need to protect myself any longer. I am spiritually who I am. I am physically who I am. And I don't have anything to prove to anybody. Not that I ever really did, but this is who I am. And I'm proud of it. And I'm going to get weepy, but that's the shift. That's the shift. And as I'm saying that, I am feeling arms wrapping around me, which of course is the Divine Mother coming in and saying, yeah, I've been telling you this for years. And you've just recently really begun to listen. I would encourage anyone and everyone who has a weight issue to know that you're not measured by the pounds that you are. That's not how people measure you. And that's not how you should be measuring yourself. I have learned so much from my students, many of whom have significant weight issues. And as I told you, we're not talking kids, young women who are maybe 10 or 20 pounds overweight. We're talking young women who are 40, 50, 60 and more pounds overweight. And they are so confident and so just present and sure of themselves. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, I wish that I could film this somehow and get it out into the world that this is how we're all supposed to be, regardless of our looks, because we're more than that. We are more than our looks. We are the sum total of everything who we are and everything that we have, everyone who we have been, everything that we've done, and everything that has been done to us. That's who we are. And I just think that it takes faith and the knowing that we're on the right path to just keep moving forward. Because if we look back, the person who we're looking at and perhaps even judging, that's a different person than who we are now. So I think it comes to, it's not even acceptance. It's just knowing that this is me. No more masks, no more veils to be behind.
Well, and everything that I know about you is so fabulous.
Thank you.
I love that your students are teaching you how to accept yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Tarr, don't worry, you can wear sleeveless, you can wear sleeveless tops. You need to be proud of every inch of yourself. Like, yes, I know that. but I hope none of them are watching, because I still will not wear sleeveless tops. Because I can say, yes, I love this part of me, but I don't love the way it particularly looks. So that's not a slam on it. It's just, I don't like my double chin either, but there's not a whole lot I can do about that.
Right. I have a very dear family member who I absolutely adore and look up to. And she's not overweight, but she feels like she's carrying about, I'd say probably 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds that she wishes that she didn't. But where I see the problem is all of her self-esteem is wrapped up in these 20 pounds. Yeah. And all of my life, I have known her to hate herself. And it just breaks my heart that she can't see how fabulous she is. The only thing she can see is those extra pounds.
And that is, if there was something that I could take a magic wand to, it would be what our society had. It would be to change what our society has done. Pardon me, I'm going to say like in the last 100 years, what they've done to women, between the corsets and maybe even a little bit longer, but the corsets and the ads and the diet pills and the, models who are anorexic and going into hospitals and dying, and telling women that if they don't fit into a specific mold, that they're not good enough. It's not even a matter of not being pretty enough or not, they're just not good enough. I never really thought less of myself because of my weight, probably until that 2005 through 2015 time period, because it was physically bothering me. And so if those pounds that she's worried about are physically bothering her, that could make her not feel fabulous. And so that translates into not being fabulous. But I think it's more our society. And we're just now starting to see large women as models. Large women on TV. I watched a rerun of The Practice the other day. And Cameron, can't think of her last name, was like a breakthrough on TV 20 years ago because she was like a size 20. She was the only woman who was a size 20 and on TV. And they go through one season, suddenly she appears and she's like a 16. And I thought, oh, please don't tell me that they did this. She gains it back over like the next year. But I thought, how refreshing. And then it took another, how many years for Roseanne to show up and be the next overweight woman. And then she lost weight. So we're constantly being like, it's being pounded. And so I'm sorry for your friend. And I wish she could sit in my classroom one day. And I send her love and I send her some healing so that she can see beyond the pattern that's in the mirror that someone in society handed her as a kid.
Right, exactly.
And break it. Yep. And say, that's not who I need to be. She's got angels around her right now that are trying to help her with that. I see them.
Nice.
I see them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, it's really interesting because they're dressed all in pastel. I see them all as pastels. So maybe that'll also make her feel lighter about herself, for what it's worth.
Well, and I will share this with her, absolutely.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that.
I share an awful lot because I feel like my life is kind of an open book. There's probably nothing about my life that I would not tell. I tell it all the time in class. I probably tell my students far more. I mean, I use it as examples and stuff. But I feel sometimes like I'm supposed to be sharing it. That it might, something I say might touch somebody or might make somebody think if in the class, oh, that's what that meant. Or, gosh, if she went through that and look at her now, so I think I'm supposed to. If it can help somebody, sure.
And I know it will. I know it will touch hearts. Yeah. So thank you.
Sure.
My last question for you, Nancy, is
Yes.
I know that you are on a life of spiritual transformation and growth. Can you share with me what's one of the last or latest or most current things that you've been learning in your spiritual walk?
I think patience and just the comfort, I guess, in knowing that I don't have to worry about what's going to happen next. That usually when I worry about it is when things don't happen. Like if I'm like, well, okay, what should I be doing about this? Or am I doing the right thing? Or am I going the right, am I doing what I should be doing? I get all balled up here, stop listening to down here in my heart and paying attention to what I'm being told. I felt kind of stuck when I called that phone number. What has it been? Almost 2 years ago now, and talked with this person by the name of Dr. Ruth Anderson that I knew was like, I know that I need to call this one. And look at where we are now, right? Both of us. So I think that it's just knowing that that I don't have to worry about what's going to come next. It doesn't mean I don't have to plan for like paying my bills and that kind of stuff, but it does mean that I block things from happening. I block my journey. I slow it down by bringing it totally into my place of control. When I try to control the outcomes is when they're totally not controlled. That's a continuing learning. I know that I'm a prophet in many ways. I feel like I am Mary's prophet to get that information out, and my job is not done there. So I think that probably is more in line with answering your question. How that will be facilitated is out of my hands at the moment.
Right. Nancy, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it and always love hearing what you're up to. So
thank you. And thank you. Send you love.
And to you. Okay, well, thank you so much for hanging in with us while we had those glitches of technology. And let's see, we've got Terry Angel still with us and NancyTarr. I think we don't have Nancy on video, but we're gonna take her with voice anyway. And Deb had to leave us. So I really wanted you all to hear Nancy's video. And what you don't know is that Nancy and I have never spoken about weight before. It's just never been an issue. It's never had a reason to come up. And that morning, as I was in meditation, asking Archangel Michael what we should talk about, he brought it up. And he wanted us, I've got goosebumps just telling you this, he wanted us to talk about it because he knew that there was somebody who was going to be listening to this that needed to hear this. And Nancy, you said a couple of brilliant things when we were talking about that. And you said you were not being fully present in the sacredness of your body. And I love thinking about our bodies being sacred. And I can honestly tell you, I don't normally think about our bodies being like a sacred temple, but I think they really are.
I think that our traditions
um, embedded in biblical, scripture and all of that, you hear the body is a temple. And if you're like me, do you really pay that much attention to that when you're hearing that in church growing up? I didn't. But as I get, I guess, older and more in touch with the wholeness of who I am, and what my connections are, why would our bodies not be sacred space? Because spirit enters into our bodies the same way spirit would enter into a church or enter into, a grove of trees, the same way that spirit is all around us. So we really are sacred space. And I think that is something that, I think that's something I don't take credit for the quote brilliance. I appreciate the compliment, but I think that sort of came through me. Maybe my higher self, or maybe just somebody saying, you need to get this information and you need to get this point out there for people.
Right. And I'm thinking of your students and how confident they are in their bodies. And thank goodness something has shifted between the generations, if that's the case. I think that's fabulous.
I don't think it's total, but I sure think we're working on it. If you look on TV, you see a lot of different shapes and sizes on TV. You see a lot of different shapes and sizes in the movies now. You didn't see that. I mean, I don't know why she suddenly popped into my head, but look at the problems that poor Judy Garland ended up with. As a teenager, I don't think she was even plump, but she was not a size 5. But they gave her diet pills because they were concerned about her weight. And that started off a life of addiction. And so because they wanted her to fit into a certain mold. And it's time, these young women who are coming up, I'm going to say that I think that they are absolutely thrilled to be breaking the mold.
Yes.
They're good kids, all of them. I shouldn't call them kids. I need to watch myself with that. Young women. They're wonderful young women. So
Nice. And one of your comments was that we are divinely perfect. And what Divine Mother said when she said, you are now just beginning to listen to that maybe now you're actually beginning to believe that.
yeah, I think that on some level, I think that we kind of, we understand that if nothing else, that's where we're headed. That's what we're working toward. But we get confused in this lifetime. There's so much that is out there that confuses us, or that, what's the word that I want? That filters into our world and alters what we think, what we're going to do. And when we have experiences sometimes, and they're not all good, then what happens is that we end up blaming ourselves, or, gee, I should have done such and such and so and so. We berate ourselves oftentimes. And so we start to get this sense of, lesser or something like that. I just was reminded of this. When I was working, I guess it was the mid 80s, and it was a couple of years after I had separated from my, now ex-husband. And I was working in an office that had some pretty open, open floor plan. We had cubicles and things. And I realized that the copier was way over on the other side of the floor. So I went out to copy something, and I got to the copier and I realized that I didn't have everything I was supposed to have with me. Go back to I'm mumbling and I'm grumbling. And as I get close to my desk, I just said, Nancy, you're an idiot. You are so stupid. And I was like, you're just, that's where my mind was. And I heard one of my coworkers say to me, Nancy, please don't talk about my friend Nancy that way.
Aw.
And so, there we are.
What?
In saying that, it made an awareness to me of why do I say things that make me feel, why am I saying you're stupid to myself? I would not say that to somebody else. Why did I give myself permission to say that to myself? So in doing that, I think what happens is that we first get this separation that we are human, and our spiritual self, if we have one, is up here someplace, or it's in a church, and we see that good person every Sunday, or every Saturday in synagogue, or wherever we go, and I think that I think I've always known that those parts were there, but fully believing it is I think kind of new, because I think that you go in and out of it, and I do believe that there's still going to be some issues and some struggles. I don't want to use the struggles as a hard word, but I think that what happens is that with time, as we start to blend everything and we become more whole, and we are flourishing in the fullness of our humanity, is when we can accept our divinity and our divine perfect selves. And pardon me, my cats are like flying through the room here. So I think that's, that I am just now realizing that I have come into that fullness of my humanity, warts and all. Everything that you see, warts and all, it's who I am. And that contributes to the fullness. We don't have to be the perfect little picture children that sit in church on Sunday wearing their best clothes that they saved for church. That's not what this is about. This is about our authenticity. This is about the way we respond to other people and the way we take care of each other, and a whole list of things, but mainly community and love and kindness and compassion, and knowing that we are moving ourselves to that place of fullness in our humanity, which is when we become our divine selves.
That's beautiful. So much of what I have been hearing about is about bringing body, mind, and spirit together. And that's what you're talking about. But it's so hard. It's just impossible to do when you look at the mirror only from here up. When you don't accept the body, and I'm getting goosebumps, when you don't embrace and accept that body that you have been so divinely given, then I agree. I don't think you can fully stand in your fullness. And there are so many reasons, not just weight, that people don't look at the body. Some people may have a disability, or gosh, they just wish that they looked like their sister, and why did she get all the good genes? Or they're shamed for one reason or another. There's so many reasons. And I'm guilty of it too, that I function as mind and spirit most of the time. So I'm having to learn this as well.
And I think that, you know, it is, I think it's a normal thing. Kids, let's face it, kids growing up, they pick on each other, not all the time, but you know, it's easy for kids to say, oh, look, what are those dots on your face? They're freckles. Ew. That plants a seed.
Right.
Or I was a redhead. I still sort of am, but you know, I was a natural redhead. Plus I was overweight, but I was more upset with my hair color than I was with my weight, because you know, I did see that one of my high school friends, Carol Allen, is on the follows these, and I'm thrilled about that. But Carol and I were redheads together in school, but not until I think it was junior high school. So that is an otherness, and I think it's that being other for whatever reason, and it is self-perception most of the time. How many times have you watched a story or heard somebody or even experienced yourself, somebody says to you, you look beautiful? Why is that so difficult for us to accept? How often do we just say thank you and not make? I had some lady say to me, I was wearing this ratty old, not this, but a ratty old shirt yesterday. And this lady says to me, what a beautiful shirt. I love that shirt. I mean, it's got like little holes in it because it's 15 years old. And I said, thanks. It's a very old shirt. And she said, you know, you really didn't have to tell me that. Right. She said, because it is a beautiful shirt. She said, okay, it's a beautiful old shirt. And I said, yeah, you're right. I didn't have to tell you that. Thank you for the reminder. And so we do that to ourselves. And when we do that, we make that separation. So it's sort of my goal. And I say to people that I say, just say thank you. And that's hard for us to do because we are conditioned to need to prove, to need to be the best that we can be, to be on top of the game, you know, on the top of our game, to be the first in line to get to the, you know, to get a ticket. And there's nothing wrong with just doing the best you can or being the last person to get a ticket. You know, I was working at a place where when I was going to college and working full time, and I was blessed enough, again, spirit intervention, to have a boss who said to me, if you have a paper that's due, if you need to do, he said, as long as your work is caught up, he said, just sit here and do it. He said, I don't care. He said, and even if your work's not caught up, he said, right now, your schooling's probably more important. Well, I was mumbling about something, and I hear this voice, you know, one of my coworkers, a male coworker, all of these people have been angels, who he says, hey, Nance. I said, what? He said, what do they call the guy who graduates last in his class? I said, what? He said, a graduate. He said, relax, stop worrying about it, and just know that you're still going to graduate.
Right.
We are famous for beating ourselves up. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that one of the biggest challenges is to accept that we are here to experience all these things and to cherish all of these things. Difficult when they're happening, and even difficult years later, but we can maybe not cherish, but we can accept it and maybe cherish the lessons and cherish the wisdom that we can extract from that, and cherish how we can use that information to help other people.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Terry Angel, can you help us see you? And is there anybody with us over in Facebook land?
Yes, there is. And I want to thank everybody that's in Facebook for your beautiful comments. Nancy, they're just loving this discussion with you.
Oh, thank you.
So many are touched by your message. And I want to read from, and I'm sorry, my lighting, I don't know what's going on with my computer right now, but I have light, it's just not showing me. We have a new participant. Her name is Kimberly Coles-Venter. And Kimberly says, it makes me cry that in our world and due to our limited human minds, that people's physical appearance or cultural background or all the labels cause other people pain. It just sucks. If everyone understood that our spirits are what counts and we are all beautiful and perfect in God's eyes, I want to help spread the word that we are not our bodies and our personalities, that we are connected and all are affected by our actions and our love we share. So I want to thank her for that. Kimberly is, she's new on her spiritual journey and she has found us, thank God. And it's here surrounded by every day so much wisdom. And I'm so glad that she came on live today to hear you. She had a question about when we say Divine Mother, what that is. She would, because I did respond, but I would love to hear both you and Ruth hear your take on when we talk to Divine Mother, when we talk about that energy. What are we talking about?
Ruth, do you want to go first?
Well, I'm sitting at the feet of the scholar who wrote her dissertation. I feel a little intimidated here.
No need to.
I'll just add a couple words here. So Kimberly, when I experience Divine Mother, it's a feminine energy. It's nurturing, it's compassionate, it's all loving. It's the quintessential mother that none of us frankly had in the physical realm. And I'm going to say her as the Divine Mother. I see her as the Mother of Christ. I see her as Mother Nature. I see her as the feminine wisdom. To me, it's sort of a composite of all of those things brought together, but a beautiful, loving energy. So, Dr. Hart.
I really can't add anything to that. I think you expressed it perfectly, Ruth. It really is. I mean, Divine Mother, it's sort of the words that we as humans, it's difficult to not put, we need to use words to understand what we feel, what we see, what we hear. That's just the way that humans work. And so Divine Mother is a wonderful, just all-encompassing way in which to describe, I think, that energy, that the creative energy that courses through the universe, that has given each of us, it vivifies us, which is, it gives us life. It's what keeps us going. It's that energy, and that has been expressed in so many ways. It is divine feminine wisdom. It is the blessed mother of Jesus, the Christ, or the Theotokos, as she is referred to, which means that the mother of God. It is Mother Earth, Mother Nature. And frankly, when I look at people like you, Ruth, or the women involved in this summit, I see the divine feminine. Because that, when I look at my students, that is the divine feminine at work. That is the Divine Mother at work. And so when we are, it's that energy working through us. So I just expanded on what you said a little bit.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you
Yours
both.
was too.
Thank you both.
Sure.
Okay, so at one point you had asked Dr. Hart about the brick and mortar. Okay, Maria, who comes on every day and lends her beautiful energy to us, Maria de la O says, I was raised Catholic and I have also attended various religious services, denominations. I have also visited well-known religious sites around the world, and the energy and spiritual sensation has never been the same. The strongest one was when I visited Lourdes Shrine in France. I love nature, especially being near water. The ocean speaks to me. I now consider myself a spiritual Christian.
Okay. I
And
think
then
that's lovely.
I do too. Yeah. And I think we reach that point, don't we? It's not about one thing. It's about everything and the unity and the oneness of all that is.
Absolutely.
So now we have a question from Kimberly. She says, okay, this is my question. Eckhart Tolle says it is one thing to start intellectually understanding something, the honey example, where you are told honey is sweet, but until you taste honey, you don't truly know honey. I feel that I am grasping the first part, but haven't yet had an experience that would back up what I am feeling and what my consciousness is driving me towards. And while I'm on this journey, I am living in a normal world with full-time work around people and a mother of 2 teens, going through regular challenges. I so want to, quote, know I have heard from spirit or my angels or divine mother that I'm on the right track. Any advice is appreciated.
So as a mother of 2 teenagers myself, I would say to you, the fact that you know that this is where your conscience is heading is huge. You are hearing spirit, whether you're actually getting words to put to that or not. But as a soul, as a spirit, you are sensing spirit and you know it's got a divine path for you. So congratulations, you are doing it. And the fact that you're here, Kimberly, is not just a fluke. Archangel Michael set out to whisper in different people's ears to have them join us. And that's why you're here. So you are getting messages. It's just a matter of learning to trust that you're getting messages. And then when you can trust it, then you'll be able to say it. I'm getting messages, but you are.
Yeah. And I would add, it's not always going to be a big trumpet call. So, you know, quite often the messages that you get, and I hope this doesn't confuse the issue, but quite often the messages that you get in silence. You get, or through silence maybe, that not hearing something. There's an old adage of, you know, I pray, God never answers my prayers. And the minister says, well, God probably has answered your prayer. The answer is probably no. So don't, you know, look, I guess what I'm trying to say is you'll see little things and little things. It's in the details sometimes that's, you know, like you can be driving down the street and suddenly a cardinal will fly by. And you may have, right before that cardinal flew by, been thinking about somebody that is no longer here with you. And that cardinal is more likely than not a messenger saying, I'm with you. And it's those things. So I agree. Congratulations, you're here. You wouldn't be here if you weren't receiving information. Learning to recognize it. Don't try so hard. just trust yourself, have faith that, wow, I did that. Look at what I did. And yes, you know, yeah, it's being around other people. There are some tools that you can use for that can help you, like maybe meditation or some protective exercises that you can do to help you to walk into a room and not take on the energy of all the people in the room. If you're an empath, you're going to feel all of that. You're going to take on everything. And so that makes it challenging to stay in that, quote, place of spirituality, unquote. So there are some things that you can look into. Right now I'm drawing a blank, but I'm sure that there are people on this summit who will be addressing, who have addressed things like that and will be addressing things. So just stick with it and find what works for you. And you may even be able to make something up for yourself.
And I would add to that, Nancy, I would add, find 30 minutes, 40 minutes of your time, sacrosanct time that nobody else is up. So I get up before my family gets up. And that is my time. I don't care if we're on vacation. I don't care what's going on, but I always have that time. And so, Kimberly, for you to carve out that time, whether it's the middle of the night, late at night, early in the morning, whatever, that time's critical for you. So, and I know we're running out of time, folks have to get off, but Terry, one last comment from the group?
Well, Kimberly is offering her appreciation. She said she really needed to hear this. I just wanted to bring up also, I believe it's Dr. Wayne Dyer that says, you'll see it when you believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
that's a matter of trust, you know, trusting that spirit is showing you that sign or giving you that message, and it will come up. And Kimberly says, thank you so much. I think there are probably a lot of people like me that are hearing a calling, but not sure how to move forward. And I think you're so right, Kimberly.
But Kimberly, you did move forward because you clicked the register here button for the summit. So congratulations, you're moving forward. So that is all the time we have tonight. Thank you for sticking with us through the glitches. NancyTarr, I adore you. Terry Angel, much love. Thank you everybody for being with us. And tomorrow, folks, day 13 is Kalina Malnar, 2 o'clock Mountain Time. So please join us if you want to learn about light language. It's a fascinating thing, and Colleen is going to share some of that with us. So thank you, everybody. Much love to you all.
Thank you. I send you my love.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.